Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
All right, so you wanted to get to the bottom of the Ark of the Covenant and not just, the religious stories, but, is there anything to this thing? Like, could it have actually done something?
Right.
We're going to be looking at a YouTube video today by Billy Carson, who approaches this from a really interesting tech angle.
Yeah.
And he makes some pretty bold claims, so we're going to have to, sift through that together and see if there's anything backing up what he's saying.
Yeah. I think what's really fascinating is that Carson dives right into these, potential practical uses of the Ark, right?
Right.
He doesn't just treat it as this, sacred object,
Right.
but proposes that it might have been, a piece of advanced technology.
Right, so, it wasn't just some mystical box.
Right.
It was like a,
Yeah.
a powerful device, maybe even like stolen tech.
Yeah, stolen Egyptian tech.
Okay, where's he getting that idea from?
So one of his starting points is the Ark's description in biblical texts, and he points out the specific clothing worn by those handling it and suggests that it was designed to protect against radiation. If true, that would definitely hint at some kind of energy emission.
That's a pretty interesting connection.
Mm-hmm.
What else does he present as evidence?
Well, he goes on to describe damage inside the Great Pyramid, which he believes is consistent with the Ark being housed there.
Okay.
And experiencing some sort of energy release, perhaps even an explosion.
Oh, okay.
Of course, that's a pretty controversial claim, and we'll have to examine the evidence carefully.
So he's not just relying on, ancient descriptions. He's tying it to actual physical traces.
Yeah.
That might still exist today.
Exactly.
So that's taking it a step further.
And then he brings up the accounts of the Ark providing power in the desert.
Okay.
He talks about something called a manna machine.
A manna machine.
Yeah.
Which supposedly created food for the Israelites.
Okay.
Potentially fueled by the Ark. And get this up.
He even suggests that it was used as a weapon against their enemies.
Hold on. A manna machine.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? And how could the Ark power something like that?
That's one of the things we'll need to look into.
Okay.
Carson doesn't go into great detail about how the machine would have functioned.
Right.
But he implies that it was technology capable of manipulating energy or matter in a way that seems almost fantastical by today's standards.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like we're venturing into speculation here.
Yeah.
But even if we take the manna machine with a grain of salt, the idea of the Ark acting as a power source or a weapon.
Right.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence outside of biblical accounts to support this?
That's where things get tricky.
Okay.
Carson mentions a modern recreation of the Ark.
Okay.
Based on biblical instructions supposedly built by a university professor.
Oh, wow.
He claims that it generated so much power that it had to be shut down. Now, that would be some pretty compelling evidence if true. But he doesn't provide any specific details about the university, the professor, or any published research to back up this claim.
So we're just taking his word for it at this point.
Pretty much, yeah.
It does sound a bit like a tall tale. We'll definitely need to see if there's any way to verify that claim.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that even if someone did manage to build something resembling the Ark and it generated some kind of energy,
Right.
that wouldn't necessarily prove that the biblical Ark possessed the same capabilities.
Okay, so let's take a step back and look at this objectively. We have some interesting ideas here. Radiation shielding, potential energy release, maybe even acting as a power source.
Right.
But so far, a lot of it hinges on interpretations of ancient texts and anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
What's the scientific perspective on all of this? Could the Ark, as described, actually function in these ways?
That's where we need to separate speculation from what's scientifically plausible.
Right.
I mean, mainstream science hasn't exactly embraced the idea of the Ark as a technological marvel. And while it's true that we don't fully understand all the secrets of ancient technologies,
Right.
we need to apply critical thinking here.
Sure.
Could there be other explanations for the evidence that Carson presents?
Right.
Is there a risk of misinterpreting ancient texts or cherry-picking data to fit a particular narrative?
Yeah, you're right. We can't just jump to conclusions.
Right.
But I have to admit, the story Carson weaves about the Ark's origins is pretty captivating.
It is.
He suggests that Moses, who he believes was actually Pharaoh Akhenaten, stole the Ark from the Egyptians.
Wow.
Now, that's a twist I didn't see coming.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold claim.
So who exactly was this Akhenaten, and why does Carson believe he was Moses in disguise? fill us in on the historical background.
Sure. So Akhenaten was a pharaoh who ruled Egypt way back in the 14th century BCE. And he's known for this like really radical attempt to shift Egyptian religion
Yeah.
from the traditional worship of, many gods to the worship of a single god, Aten the sun disk.
Wow, so this pharaoh tried to like totally rewrite the religious playbook. That's a pretty gutsy move, especially back then. And Carson thinks this connects to the Ark somehow.
Right, that's where his theory gets really interesting. He suggests that Akhenaten's religious revolution was fueled by knowledge of the Ark's power.
Hmm.
He even claims that Akhenaten, fearing opposition to his ideas and maybe wanting to protect this advanced technology,
Right.
fled Egypt, taking the Ark with him. And that's where the Moses connection comes in.
So in Carson's view, Moses wasn't just a prophet. He was like a pharaoh on the run with a super advanced piece of tech.
Exactly.
That's a wild story. But is there any historical evidence to back up this Akhenaten-Moses connection?
Well, that's where we need to tread carefully.
Okay.
While there are some, intriguing parallels between Akhenaten's story and the biblical narrative of Moses,
Like
like
that.
leading people away from established beliefs and towards a single god,
Right.
mainstream historians haven't exactly embraced this theory.
Okay.
It's important to remember that attributing such a significant event to a single individual, especially one from such a distant past, it requires very strong evidence.
Okay. So we're back to needing more than just a compelling story.
Right.
But let's say, for the sake of argument, that there is something to this Akhenaten connection.
Oh, okay.
How does that help us understand the Ark's potential function and utility?
Well, if we entertain the possibility that Akhenaten possessed the Ark and it did have these technological capabilities,
Right.
it raises questions about how he might have used it.
Right.
Could it have been a source of power for his new city?
Okay.
Could it have been used for some unknown purpose that was lost to history?
I'm picturing this pharaoh with a device that could like rival modern technology.
Yeah.
Did he use it to like build incredible structures or maybe even control the population through some kind of advanced tech?
Those are some really intriguing thoughts, but it's crucial to avoid getting carried away by speculation.
Right.
We need to stick to the evidence, however limited it may be.
You're right. It's easy to let our imaginations run wild with a topic like this. But I have to admit, the idea of rediscovering lost technologies from ancient civilizations, that's incredibly exciting.
It certainly is, and it's a good reminder that what we consider impossible today might have been commonplace in the past. Who knows what knowledge and skills might have been lost over the centuries?
Speaking of lost knowledge, we were talking earlier about that professor who supposedly recreated the Ark.
Oh, right.
Is there any way to track down more information about that experiment? Even if it didn't perfectly replicate the Ark's powers, it would be fascinating to know if they managed to generate any unusual energy effects.
That's the challenge with anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
Without specific names, dates, or publications, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
We'd need a lot more details to even begin a proper investigation.
So where do we go from here? We have these tantalizing hints about the Ark's potential function, but so much of it feels shrouded in mystery and speculation. How can we separate fact from fiction when it comes to ancient technology? It feels like we're trying to piece together a puzzle with only a few pieces. What approaches can we use to investigate these claims about the Ark's capabilities in a more systematic way?
Well, one approach would be to look beyond just the biblical accounts
Okay.
and see if there are any other historical records, perhaps from other ancient cultures that describe similar devices or technologies.
Okay.
Maybe there's like a hidden gem of a text out there that corroborates some of these claims.
So like cross-referencing ancient myths and legends to see if there are any recurring patterns or descriptions that match up with the Ark.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fascinating idea.
And on the scientific side, we could explore the feasibility of the Ark's proposed functions
Okay.
based on, our current understanding of physics and engineering.
Right.
For example, could a device like the Ark, as described in ancient texts, actually generate or contain the kind of energy Carson suggests?
So we'd need like physicists and engineers to weigh in on whether these claims are even remotely possible.
Right.
Based on, the laws of nature.
Exactly.
It almost feels like we're venturing into science fiction territory here.
Well, the line between science fiction and science fact can be surprisingly thin at times.
Okay.
Remember, what might have seemed like magic or the impossible in the past can sometimes be explained by scientific principles that we understand today.
That's a good point. Maybe we just haven't discovered the right scientific framework yet to understand how the ark might have worked.
Precisely, and that's what makes this such a captivating topic.
Right.
It pushes us to expand our thinking and consider possibilities beyond our current understanding.
But even if we can't fully explain it with our current scientific knowledge, wouldn't it be amazing to find some physical evidence to back up these claims? Like, if the Ark was really housed in the Great Pyramid, shouldn't there be some trace of its presence? Some anomaly that can't be explained by conventional means?
That's where archaeology and the study of ancient structures come in.
What?
We'd need to examine those claims of damage inside the Great Pyramids, see if they hold up under scrutiny, and
Okay.
determine if there are any alternative explanations.
So we need a multidisciplinary approach. Historians, archaeologists, scientists, and maybe even some engineers all working together to unravel this mystery.
Exactly. It's not just about proving or disproving one particular claim,
Right.
but about deepening our understanding of the past and the possibilities that lie beyond our current knowledge.
It's like we're on an intellectual treasure hunt, searching for clues that might lead us to a lost chapter of human history.
And who knows what we might find along the way.
Right.
Even if the Ark turns out to be more myth than machine, the process of exploring these questions can lead to unexpected discoveries and insights.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the mysteries of the Ark of the Covenant, what are some key takeaways for you, and what questions do you think we should keep in mind as we continue to explore this topic?
I think the most important takeaway is the need to approach these kinds of claims with a healthy dose of skepticism,
Okay.
but also with an open mind.
Sure.
We shouldn't dismiss anything outright, but we also need to be rigorous in our search for evidence and alternative explanations.
It's a delicate balance between curiosity and critical thinking.
Exactly. And I think the question that continues to intrigue me is this: what if we've only scratched the surface of what ancient civilizations were capable of? What if there are still secrets waiting to be uncovered that could fundamentally change our understanding of history and technology?
That's a thought-provoking question to leave our listeners with. What other mythical objects or lost technologies might be out there waiting for us to rediscover them? If the Ark of the Covenant could potentially be more than just a religious relic, what other wonders might be hidden in plain sight? Keep those minds curious, everyone, and keep exploring. You never know what mysteries you might unravel.
If you enjoyed this episode of While We Were Distracted, be sure to watch the video that inspired it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.